You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined, as always, by your co-hosts, Kevin and Alex. Guys, how are we doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, man. We're recovering from the cardiac arrest of football games the NFL gave us this past weekend, but my goodness, were they fun to watch. So I'm hoping it just keeps getting better from here, but I don't know how we top what we saw Sunday night, guys.
I don't know that you can.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Sunday night gets topped for a while. I feel like we got robbed that should have been the AFC Championship game. I feel like that game came one round too early. Not that it didn't mean anything, because obviously in any situation where a loser goes home a little bit, I think that was a treat. The almost comeback, the almost 28-3, but it was 27-3 comeback that Tom and the boys down in Tampa almost pulled off was pretty remarkable. Yeah, like who would have thought that Saturday's games, as crazy as they were, like didn't even hold a candle really to Sunday's games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the lot of good games, but man, if you're a Packers fan right now, how tight are you clenching your cheeks, knowing that it was your special teams that cost you the game, and that could be how your quarterback leaves town? Like Green Bay has had 30 consecutive years of Hall of Fame quarterback play, and they only have 2 Super Bowls to show for it, guys. Like, epic failure from the Packers organization that you have 30 consecutive years of quarterback play that's Hall of Fame worthy, and you have 2 Super Bowls to show for it.
Yeah, that's a pretty rough when you put it in that perspective. That's very not fun to look at. I know there's a topic that a lot of people have broached as we broached. I don't know what the word I'm looking for there is, but the topic is obviously the NFL and their overtime rules, with how the game in Kansas City ended on Sunday night. I'll put it to you guys because I have thoughts on it, but I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. And this is kind of impromptu, not following what we had written down. But what do you think of the NFL overtime rules? Do you think that there's a change? If you say that college has it right, you're a liar and you will be admonished. Anybody who thinks that the college way of doing things, this college way now of doing things, is the best way to go about it is ridiculous. But what do you guys think about NFL and their overtime rules?
So,
especially in the playoffs. In the playoffs.
And I'm thinking playoff specific. I understand why they have it the way they do in the regular season, and I can get behind that. And so be it. But this was definitely water cooler talk across the nation and possibly across the globe, right? Of what do you think about this? And I really got to thinking about it, and I think that no matter what, both offenses need to have the ability to touch the football unless there's a defensive touchdown to seal that. Right. Or a safety defensive touchdown to seal that. But other than that, I do think both offenses should get their first crack at having the ball. And then after that, I am okay with going back to sudden death, because at some point these defensive players get paid too. And they get paid to make stops. And yes, the rules are geared towards the offense and everything else, but at least give both offenses a chance. And after that, then I'm okay with sudden death, field goal, touchdown, safety. It doesn't matter at that point after both offenses have possessed it once. But I do think that amendment should be made, because between when was it in 18, the Brady Mahomes game
I think it was 19. No, it was 18.
It was 18. 18.
That
right,
game,
18.
right? Kind of like, man, Mahomes didn't even get a chance to touch the ball. Brady just marched down, put it to bed. We all kind of rumbled about it, but the stature of Mahomes hadn't quite sunk in yet. Like, he was good, but now he is, some of the best of the best of the best. And seeing what him and Allen put on display in the best game the NFL has quite possibly ever had, ever. Super Bowl, divisional round, regular season, ever. And to end with one of those quarterbacks not being able to touch the ball, and it wouldn't have mattered which one, right? We would have been disappointed with the outcome that the other guy didn't touch it regardless. So I do think that needs to be amended. Both teams need to at least touch it once, and then sudden death. I'm okay with that.
So at that point, are you talking about, where you stick the ball on the 35-yard line and, they're already in scoring territory and let the offense go? Or
No, you start it just like a half.
Okay.
You start just like a half. You have your coin flip. You choose whether you want to kick off or defer, and the other team gets to choose their side, and you start play. And if your team's defense can get a stop and they punt it to you, and you get the ball at your 45 or 50 and can march it down for a little ways and score a field goal, so be it. It's because your defense did their job first and then allowed the offense to put points up on the board. But both teams had a crack at it and at least the opportunity to march down the field.
Fair enough. I mean, it's one of those that it speaks to the fact that it's been 3-4 years since we've seen the last time that that a game has finished that way, where everybody's upset that not both teams got the ball, that one quarterback didn't get the chance to showcase that thing. And so the fact that this happens very rarely, we could make some rule changes. I could also see leaving it the way that it is. It's a vast improvement the way that it is now compared to what it used to be, where it was just sudden death, period, end of story, where you'd sit there and you'd see teams march the ball down there, get inside field goal range, trot somebody out there, kick a field goal. And it was, oftentimes one of the least exciting ways to end a game that had gone into overtime. So they've made improvements, and I can get behind what you're talking about there too, Kevin. But I would say that you take it a step further on that one, right? Like, instead of just doing it where they get, both teams get the ball, put time back on the clock, make it another quarter, make it, even a 10-minute type of thing. Put 10 minutes on the clock. They coin flip it, kick it off, and whatever the score is at the end of 10 minutes, that's what it is. If we are still at a tied game there, it just moves straight into sudden death.
And I think that's a possibility, but I do think the player safety aspect comes back into play, right? Like, how much longer can these human bodies take this physical abuse and then be able to recover and play at an extremely high level the next week, and to the point they're not compromised? Like, yeah. And yes, I guess I didn't explain myself well, but I completely agree with the running clock. You put, 10, 12, 15 minutes on there, you play a full quarter, whatever that looks like, and go from there. And it's like leaving your favorite restaurant and being unsatisfied. Like, the meal was good, but man, it was missing something, right? Like, it just wasn't great. And what a shame it is for the NFL to have this amazing weekend of divisional round playoffs. And this is, if it's not topic number one on every single outlet, it's topic number 2 in what should be done about this. And instead of, I guess, rejoicing them and saying, look, yeah, we added these teams into the playoff. Only one team got the bye. Both 1 seeds got burned, and all the rhetoric behind, the ins and outs of it, and enjoying the playoffs and the moment, we're talking about rule changes because it just wasn't quite right. Like, that's a bummer.
So I have thoughts, and I'm going to preface this by saying none of this is my own original thoughts. They are things that I've heard that I agree with completely. And really what it boils to, thing that you guys kept saying was, right, like the coin flip is so big in playoff overtime games, right? Like, what is the stat? It's like 10 of 11 of the coin flip winners since they changed the rule have won that game. And I guess in the regular season, it's only like 50% or just over 50% that the coin flip winner in the regular season wins the game. So here is a thought that I heard, and it was from Colin Cowherd. But the more I thought about it, the more I put it into bush. It's an unbelievably good. I think it's a good idea because of how it changes not just how you would approach overtime, but how you approach the end of a fourth quarter. So in order to avoid the coin flip, it would be automatic that the road team gets the ball first. Now, Kevin, I agree with your point that both teams need to have the ability to possess the ball unless a defensive score occurs during the first possession, right? Like you can end it either with a touchdown or with a defensive score, or the other team gets a rebuttal. But if going into that overtime period, that team B, the road team, is going to get the ball, don't you think team A might have a little bit more incentive to do something about that and not just, hey, we'll take our chances on the coin flip, and that's clearly not what the case was, Sunday night. That was not the case at all. That was the Chiefs needed to get to back even. But with the amount of, just knowing who's going to get the ball first, I think changes things dramatically, and it would change how I think we'd see fewer games. Even if they implemented this in the regular season, I think we'd see fewer games go to overtime, because I think teams would understand, like, okay, hey, like, we're not going to get the ball first. And so I think in the regular season, the game should end on touchdown or defensive score, or once the other team gets it, if it's a field goal, whatever. Like that can stay the same, and that can stay the same in the playoffs, is provided both teams get the opportunity to possess the ball, regardless of a touchdown. But if we take the coin flip out of it, and that the road team, because they're already at a disadvantage, right? In theory, they're already at a disadvantage playing on the road. It would change how the game is coached, how it's played. And I think it would do it for the better. So that's what I think is the everybody's saying, oh, we're leaving things to a coin flip, and this coin flip, while it's a 50-50 chance, it's clearly not, because whoever wins that coin flip is likely going to win the game, especially in the playoffs. Take the coin flip out of it.
But at the same time, too, if both teams are guaranteed a possession, right, that changes things. But you said something very interesting that started the wheels turning there when you were talking about how the game is coached and how the game ends going down into the fourth quarter. And I would be very interested to see what the statistics are of teams that caused the tie to happen. On a last second field goal to tie that thing, or caused the tie to happen on a touchdown where they went for 1 point instead of a 2-point conversion type of thing, like we saw this last weekend. In some of these types of deals where because you look at earlier in the season, right? Like the Ravens scored a touchdown to get within 1 point earlier, go for two. That was one of those where it was a bad thrown pass to Mark Andrews, who couldn't haul it in to get into the end zone for the 2-point conversion to win it. And they lose on the last second play type of thing. So at that point, like, I guess that would be really my question there is, does that really change the way that the fourth quarter is going to end? Because at that point, right, like even if you're the home team, you're down by 3, you've got 3 seconds left on the clock. Are you going to try and throw, a 30-yard touchdown pass, or are you going to kick the field goal to send it to overtime? Those types of things, all of that comes into play. I think you're still going to see the same amount of overtimes when it's all said and done.
Sure, and you might see the same amount, but what I think happens is more often than not is the team that has a minute left, or has 45 seconds left, or has 35 seconds left, if they know, say it's the home team, right? The home team knows we're not going to get the ball to start overtime. We should probably do something about it. instead of just take the knee and try our chance with the coin toss. So that to me is where you remove that. You remove the variability of the coin toss out. Don't get me wrong. The coin toss has a place. It is one of my favorite prop bets of the Super Bowl every year because it is just dumb luck. You got 50-50 chance, pick one side, right? But I think that if you remove that variable out, which is the coin and the calling of the coin toss, and we just automatically know road teams getting the ball, then I think it changes how you approach the final minute of a game, especially if you're a team that's down by 3 or down by 7 or down by 8. I think it changes how you would approach that.
I think parts of that I would be okay with. I think it would be an interesting way to add it to the beginning of game coin toss, though, and going back to a coin toss. So it's not predetermined that the road team gets the ball first. That's not how the game is started. It's currently not how overtime started or everything else. So don't give them anything, but make it part of your choices. Do you want to kick, receive, defer, or kick, receive, the overtime? Like, you get first pick. So now the winner of said coin toss gets 2 choices. The loser of the coin toss really only gets 1. So you still have the coin toss in play, right? But then you're playing with that the entire game, and it maybe it does change your strategy a little bit, right? Like, hey, even as the road team, hey, coming in, we know this, and this is, kind of what we need to do throughout the game to get this achieved, and just kind of that in-game coaching strategy. So I'm not completely opposed to the idea of knowing who gets the ball first in overtime, but I do think I still want it decided by a 50-50 probability and not have it predetermined going in that, okay, we need to play for the tie, try and get them gassed, and we'll get them in overtime because we know we get the ball first and can really put them behind the 8 ball. Like, there's something about that I feel loses its competitive edge by already knowing and not having the momentum of the game and the exhilaration of the fans kind of behind it.
Kevin, I think you fixed it right there with that thought. So I like it.
That's an interesting one.
Put them on the rules committee, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get this fixed.
Hey.
We'll get it fixed quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Even a blind squirrel. There
we go. But regardless of all the overtime shenanigans, right? Like, that was still an incredible weekend of football. And Kevin, I know you and I were talking about this yesterday, but that was probably the very best weekend of football that I can remember, especially weekend playoff football that I can remember. Typically when you're going into those things and in the divisional round, things like that, you typically get one team that just gets stomped on there. This was like one of the closest spreads overall of the weekend, right? Like, all combined, there was a 15-point differential between 4 NFL games. Like, that just does not happen, and you typically do not see those things, come to bear. Like, it just doesn't happen. Where it's 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, overtime, and we have a touchdown to win that thing. There was a very strong possibility that Chiefs-Bills game ends on a field goal there as well once it went to overtime. So, incredible type of stuff there where it very well could have been. The fact that you see these things play out to the point where we could have had a 12-point type of spread throughout all games combined, which is just, mind-boggling to think about.
Yeah, it really was. It was just, each game was exciting for a slightly different reason,
right?
For what they were, right? Like the Cincinnati Bengals and Tennessee game, which a lot of people kind of wrote off. I mean, you had your Cincinnati people wanting the Bengals to win, but a lot of people finally trusting the Titans. Okay, they're the 1 seed for a reason. They've done all this. They'll come out and at least give the threat of Derrick Henry to open things up. And the threat of Derrick Henry actually worked better than Derrick Henry did. Like,
yes,
the deep shots to A.J. Brown was the most successful thing Tennessee did all game long. And he had what? Five catches for 117 or 123 yards, something like that. They were all deep plays, deep crossers, a deep corner, a deep post. Like it was all the deep shots that worked with AJ Brown, and they couldn't quite get it going because the front seven of Cincinnati played out of their freaking minds, guys. Like we had seen flashes of this defense through the regular season. Like I was able to watch them firsthand when they came into Denver and play the Broncos, and they're aggressive. Like their front seven's aggressive. They like to get after it, but they found another level, and kudos. So now you kind of have this mystique of Joe Burrow, right? And what he's been able to do, and another up and coming AFC quarterback. Like, holy smokes. And then the Packers-Niners game, which that game was decided by two special teams plays. It was the blocked field goal before halftime, and it was the blocked punt for a touchdown at the end of the game. Like, that had nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, Deebo Samuel, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, George Kittle. Like, it had nothing to do with those guys. It was a complete lack of preparedness from the Green Bay Packers special teams and understanding what their deficiencies were and how to make sure in crucial moments people didn't leak through and disrupt plays. And they failed to do it, and it cost them a game, right? And it was crazy. And then obviously the Bucs coming back and making a game out of it. It looked like the Rams were just going to run crazy out the gates. Tom Brady did Tom Brady type things, right? He fought and clawed his way back, 27-3, right? He was down 27-3, and everyone's thinking, "Holy shit, we've seen this script before, haven't we? Like this is just another version of the Falcons game." And boom, all of a sudden, Winfield loses containment. I don't know how you can let Cooper Kupp get behind you on that play, but he sure did. And Matt Stafford dropped a dime on Cooper Kupp, and they ran up, spiked it, and won the game. Like it just amazing quarterback play in the Sunday games specifically, but even in parts of the Saturday games, the quarterbacks didn't lose any of those games. Tannehill might be the exception because of all the picks, right? The turnovers killed them. But it was the fumbles for the Rams. It had nothing to do with Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, for all the crap that he's gotten and being turnover prone and a gunslinger and the challenges that he had in the back half of the regular season, getting too aggressive and turning the ball over, he was not responsible for the 4 lost fumbles on Sunday. That was Cam Akers, which hurts my heart to say that because I was really hoping he'd go gangbusters. And just some other, Cooper Kupp even, let one go, right? He got one stripped from him. So it was really, really good quarterback play on Sunday and really great defensive football all across the board on Saturday. So you did get to see both sides of football between the weekend.
So a quick aside, I was watching that Bucs Rams game. I was by myself while I was watching it. My fiance was in the other room.
Best way to watch football.
She's in the other room, and I don't know about you guys, but when you watch things by yourself, you usually kind of have that inner monologue with yourself. It's not like out loud. Nothing is out loud, but it's all happening in your head. Like you'll say like, "Oh, that was like a really nice play," or whatever. Like you just kind of have that inner monologue with yourself. When Cam Akers fumbled the final time, I guess you would say, that led to the score that eventually tied it, out loud, I said, "You've got to be fucking kidding me!" Like out loud. it was such a impromptu, just like that's how crazy that game was. That it was out loud talking to yourself. Like that's how crazy that game was. Just talking to nobody in the room. Just me talking to myself, but I had to say something out loud because that's how just bananas and bonkers that game was. Because again, like you said, Kevin, we've seen this story before, but it still is unbelievable every time it happens. Like it's still, you just don't believe it's going to happen. Even though we've seen it before, you still don't believe that it could possibly happen, not just once, but that it could possibly happen again. But it was an out loud inner monologue, if you will. And I think there was a lot of that happening throughout the country of people who typically just have the conversation with themselves in their head, but out loud, audibly, had to say something when Akers fumbled that last time.
Oh, heck yeah. My mom, my mom watches football. She's a fan. She enjoys it. Sometimes it's just background noise. Sometimes she gets into it, but she likes watching football for the most part. Was texting me all day Sunday. Can you believe this? And what is going on with Brady and this, and holy crap, he's coming back and he dropped the ball again. And just the whole thing. Like, it was so cool. Just the text messages, right? Like, if you could take a snapshot of the text messages just nationwide that were going along through this game and what people had to say and the roller coaster of emotions. Like, oh, how amazing. It's so cool.
I like it. Philly Mike, what's up? Chiming in on the comment there. He's also saying that the Super Bowl is in LA. Imagine if the Rams would be there, but he would not be upset if the Niners get there. You will have a California team in the California location of the Super Bowl. So
if the Super Bowl stays in California,
it's going to stay there.
Well, it is.
The NFL is too stubborn.
There's still rumors of they have not completely squashed the idea that the Super Bowl might get moved because they don't
Super Bowl is going to stay in California.
Local law.
Once again, though, I think it is interesting that I mean, is there anything Tom Brady hasn't done in this league? Like this, the luster of a team playing a Super Bowl in their own building. Like, yeah, we already lost that. Tom already did that, won the Super Bowl in his home building. Like, whatever.
Right.
And actually, that was crazy to think about, right? So the Buccaneers didn't play a playoff game, a home playoff game the year that they won the Super Bowl in their stadium. So they were the visiting team.
Until they played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they were the visiting team in the Super Bowl, nonetheless, in their home stadium. Just a fun little side note there. But, guys, we do have a fun little thing on, guess that player and pick which one you would have rather have drafted in this past season. You guys will get to see some stats, and we're going to go through all of these good stuff here. So,
Philly Mike, we'll get to your question. We'll get to it after we get to this.
Yep. Yeah, because we're going to talk about the NFC champion, the NFL championship round. That was a little bit
conference championships.
The conference championships. There we go. We got it. And then we'll pick where we'll look back at our preseason picks and our postseason once those started picks. But guys, it's time to get into another GM type of challenge here for your fantasy rosters. Pick your player. So player one in 2021 had 74 receptions, 110 targets, 1,091 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. Player 2 had 79 receptions, 120 targets, 1,102 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. Which player would you have rather had for your fantasy team, and why?
Whichever one I could get later in the draft.
Okay. So
I'll tell you, it's negligible, right? We're talking 5 catches, 9 yards, same number of touchdowns.
Yeah, basically 2 points, 2.5 points, and a half point PPR. So whichever one cost me less.
Yeah. And both players were a top 20 wide receiver when it was all said and done. Do you guys have any guesses as to which 2 players these are?
Not even a clue.
I am one Stefon Diggs.
He was in consideration for this, but some of his stats would have given him an outlier type of approach.
Okay.
Stefon Diggs does not. So,
all right.
Alrighty. So let's go ahead and roll the tape here on who player 1 and player 2 are.
This drum roll's killing me.
Right? So T. Higgins was player 1, finishes wide receiver 17, had an ADP of 65.3 at half point PPR drafts. CeeDee Lamb, who finished at wide receiver 14 with an ADP of 34.3 in half point PPR. So you're talking about almost 3 rounds worth of difference between these two guys here, right? CD Lamb typically taken in the 4th round. On that, T. Higgins was a 6th, 7th round kind of guy in most of your drafts there. So one of those, always love going through these things when you put up these blind stats, these blind comparisons here, especially when you can find things that, the points scored there, right? CD put up more points, finished 3 spots ahead of T. Higgins, but from a points per game, from a overall fantasy point output there, it's about a negligible type of difference there. But the fact that you could have taken a 4th round pick and gotten somebody that would have far outperformed that 80 or performed closer to that ADP and gotten T. Higgins, 3 rounds later, definitely changes a lot of things there. Guys, any other thoughts on this one?
Who was 15 and 16? Their numbers had to have been the exact same.
They're really close.
So we're talking 5 catches and 9 yards between these two dudes.
Yep.
Right.
So very, very close on all of those things. So always fun to go through that and look through there. For everybody out there listening or watching, if you guys have some players that you want me to put up there and do a blind comparison with, anything like that, hit us up in the DMs, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Let us know those players. We'll put it up there. We'll pose the question over here to Kevin and Alex, get them to take a stab at the players, and kind of give you the strategy on which way they would lean on those things as well. So always a good time. But Philly Mike
was much better at historical FCS players in the NFL than this one.
Yes, you were. I was actually very surprised that you got both of the receivers on last week's one. It was awfully good. Awfully good. I tip of the hat to you, sir. So let's go ahead and head on into some NFL conference championship round here. Philly Mike is wanting to know, out of the 4 teams left, who's your number 1 lock to make it to the Super Bowl? All 3 answer, please. Of course we will, Mike. We'll get right into that one. But before we get into how we're going to pick this thing going forward, we're going to take a look at the preseason again and who we had picked to make it this far. Alex, you had the Colts and the Bills and the Bucks and the Niners. So tip of the hat to you with the Niners call preseason. I had the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bucks and the Rams. So I got 2 of them right. And then Kevin, you had the Bills and Chiefs, and then you had the Bucks and the Rams. So also getting 2 of those teams right there. And then your Super Bowl predictions preseason, Alex, you called the Bills and Bucks. I called the Chiefs and the Rams, and Kevin, you called the Chiefs and the Bucks. Postseason, though, a little bit different there. When we started the postseason and the seeding had been set and all of that, we went through and started looking at some of those. Alex, you called for the Bills and Chiefs and the Bucks and the Niners. So definitely getting 2 of those guys in there, sticking with your preseason picks there with the Niners and the Bucks and the Chiefs. Kevin, you rode the Bucks and the Packers, the Bills and the Chiefs. I said the Chiefs and the Titans and the Buccaneers and the Packers. And Alex, I'm not going to lie, you're riding the hotter hand here when we look at the postseason side of things.
We were robbed. That Bills-Chiefs game should have been the damn AFC Championship.
It should have been a damn Super Bowl and just give one of them the trophy.
For sure.
You are not kidding. Man, that was a good game. All righty. So, guys, now that we've kind of looked back at the past here a little bit, and now that we've got our the matchup set here for the conference championship round, it is time to call your shot on the conference championship rounds. Who is advancing to the Super Bowl?
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
As much as this pains me to say, the magic that the Bengals have been playing with, I think that magic runs out when they head to what used to be called Arrowhead. I think that finally their naivete catches up to them. We've seen this before where a team is just going out there and playing, and they don't quite understand the moment, and how oftentimes that is a good thing, that they don't understand the moment. They're just going out there and playing. But I think the moment finally catches up to them. So I will take the Chiefs to win the AFC. The NFC is a tough one for me. common sense says take the Rams, right? I think the Rams, they're at home. They've been playing well. I think they have the better quarterback of the two teams. I think they have more playmakers of the two teams. But for whatever reason, Sean McVay cannot figure out the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan has his number. We saw it at the end of the regular season, that last game that the Niners got into the postseason by winning that game. And if I'm not mistaken, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm pretty sure the Niners have beat the Rams 6 straight times.
That's correct.
That is correct.
The Niners are to the Rams what Aaron Rodgers is to the Bears type of thing.
Sure.
Like
there you
it
go.
is.
Yes.
It is absolutely insane. The one guy that McVay can't get by is Shanahan.
The guy that he was on the same coaching staff in Washington with.
Right.
So I think, common sense here says take Rams, but I've been kind of wrapping this up and take Trey Lance number 3 overall. So I'm going to keep riding this Niners train, and I think it's going to make for a very interesting offseason with whatever the hell happens with Jimmy Garoppolo after this, because I don't think they're going to keep him for another year, despite the fact that he will have now gotten them 2.
They're hoping that he just balls out because all that does is drive
his.
all that does is drive his price up for draft picks back. So
they're
hoping that he goes out there and balls out.
I will go 49ers and Chiefs in the Joe Montana's teams face-off Super Bowl.
The repeat of a couple years ago, huh?
Yeah.
89. Yeah. Long time ago. I agree with the Chiefs. Cincinnati's glass slipper has run out. I do not see Kansas City losing to the same team twice, especially with as close as they played to the playoffs, because they played each other in week 16, I believe it was.
It was final week, 18. Oh, I'm sorry. Who are you talking about?
No, yeah, it was 18 because the Niners had to win to secure their playoff spot.
No. I'm talking the Chiefs-Bengals game.
Oh, yes. That was about week 16. Sorry, misheard the question.
So, but yeah, I think Kansas City atones from that. They already kind of atoned from one this season, so they're on the revenge tour. And at this point, they know what it takes, right? This is where the experience does come in. They know what it takes, the perseverance that is needed to get to this past, win your conference championship game, get to the Super Bowl. And it's not that I think the spotlight's too big for Joe Burrow. I don't think that's the case at all, guys. I just think that when it comes down to it, the Chiefs have a crazy way of making the right play at the right time defensively. Not even with Patrick Mahomes, but defensively to, create havoc. And I don't think that they're going to let Jamar Chase get behind them for another 278 and 3 touchdowns or whatever the hell his stat line was. I think they're going to put that on lockdown. So I have the Chiefs coming out of the AFC as well. The NFC, I'm taking the Rams. It's 6 times in a row, but good Lord, is it hard to do it twice in a season? The Niners managed to do that, and now a third time is going to be almost unheard of, guys. Like, it just doesn't happen all too often. And really, the defensive game plan for the Rams, I think, is simple. You run man coverage with a single high safety all game long, and you bring the other safety down into the box. And if Brandon Ayuk or if Juwan Jennings is the guy to beat you, so be it. But you don't let Debo and you don't let Elijah Mitchell beat you. And you do everything you can to force Garoppolo to throw the ball. Just throw the ball. You take, if he's going to take 5-yard, little crossers all game, you death by 1,000 paper cuts, so be it. But you do not let the running game take precedent and just bowl your guys out of the way, because we saw it happen in the second half in week 18, and we saw it the entire game when they played each other back in week 7, 8,
It was early in the season.
whatever that time frame was. The Niners know the recipe. Run the ball 40 plus times and wear down the front 7 of the Rams. On the flip side, the Rams know what they need to do, right? You take your game plan from the first half of the week 18 game where you spread them out, you find the open guy, you hit some of these crosser routes, you make them pay when they go into zone coverage, and you try and run the ball outside, right? You don't want to necessarily force it up in between the tackles all game. That's kind of a no-sum gain right there. So I think the game plan's right there. McVay just has to follow it. I'm going to say the Rams because I'm a Matt Stafford homer. He's a dog. I've watched him suffer for so long in Detroit that I want to see him. I want to see him get there. I don't know that he's going to win it, but I do want to see him get there for everything that he's accomplished in his career and really gone undervalued for. So I'm taking the Rams and the Chefs.
I like it. I am also I'm gonna go back to my preseason, call there with the Rams and the Chiefs meeting up. But is it going to surprise me if the Niners win that game? No, it's not. In fact, I'm going to be looking. It's a tight spread on that one, about 3.5, and I'm probably going to be looking at taking the Niners on the spread on this one because I think this is going to be a field goal game. Like this is going to be a great matchup, and it's going to come down to who has the ball last. Is how I feel that Rams and Niners game is going to go. Philly Mike coming through with the Debo or Cooper Kupp all around. Philly Mike, are you talking DFS? You talking just if we're a GM drafting a player type of thing? Hit us up. Let us know. Philly Mike also saying that Derek, Alex, Kevin, you guys were awesome all football season. Your grind and hard work and streams and the advice and time and effort into answering fans' questions was huge. You guys rocked. Mike, we very much appreciate that. We do that. And everything that we do is to help you guys try and win cash and trophies. So thank you very much for the kind words. And Mike's pick for the Super Bowl is a repeat of the 2019 Super Bowl of the Chiefs and the Niners, with the Niners winning. And his question on Cooper Kupp or Deebo Samuel all around was for DFS this weekend. And at that point, I'm going to be watching the injury reports like a hawk coming through down the stretch here and see how Debo is going to be holding up and what the injury reports are saying on that one. And if Debo's slightly banged up, I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp. But if Debo can go and he's going to get a similar workload where you're going to see him run the ball, he's going to catch the ball, all of that, I might lean towards a Debo simply because he'll have a lower price tag on DFS type of formats there. Guys, any other thoughts?
I'm going Kupp.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would lean Kupp as well.
And he's got to have he does need a big number to pay off the price tag, right? Because I think he's 10.2 or something like that. So yeah, he's big. I get it. Kupp needs it. Quite frankly, you could put both these guys in your lineup and be just fine. I mean, you get a little creative in some different areas, but really, if I'm looking at DFS, I want to look at, how can I get a combination of Kupp, Tyreek, Debo in my wide receiver. How two of the three. Understanding Kupp and Tyreek are priced higher, but two of the three, and seeing what the rest of that lineup looks like. I'm willing to punt running back for Kansas City and even Joe Mixon. I don't think Cincinnati's going to use him a whole heck of a lot in this game. So it would I'm definitely wide receiver heavy is where I'm spending my money on DFS. I'm going wide receiver heavy, and I'll let the rest play out.
Yes, Pringle's my guy that I would go with on that, Mike. You took the words right out of what I was going to say there. So, and between the two on what you're saying, Pringle or Hardman, I'm going to take Pringle. Pringle's been more involved in that offense as of late, and it goes back even into the regular season coming through. Like he is kind of becoming that actual wide receiver 2 in that offense. Obviously he's not the second target for that. That's going to be Tyreek and Kelsey there. But I
think that's why I would go Hardman, is to separate my lineup a little bit, right? Because we're only talking 2 games. So to differentiate my roster from someone else, if I can get Hardman and save $200 or whatever their price difference is, I'd have to look. I haven't gotten into that just yet this week. So um, I think that's why I would go Hardman, is to differentiate my lineup from everybody else's, knowing that Pringle's going to be a pretty savory option for a cheaper wide receiver. Same with Tyler Boyd for the weekend slate is another cheaper option, right? We're talking third options on these teams.
Van Jefferson would be a good one too.
Yeah. So, and I guess that's the real question is, Pringle, Hardman, Van Jefferson, Tyler Boyd, like where, or Juwan Jennings from the Niners, because he's been getting involved too. So they're number 3 options on all 4 teams. Which one of those number 3 options would you like to have to save some cash on your DFS roster?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it a lot. Cool. Alex, any other thoughts on that one?
No, we'll get into the reason why you shouldn't listen to me for when it comes to DFS here in just a bit.
How about right now? We'll just head right there. So,
let's do it.
Side note.
Am
I crazy from wanting to hammer the Bengals to cover the 7.5?
Dude, that's
I think the Chiefs are going to win,
right? Like that is such a tasty number.
I think the Chiefs are going to win, but
that's
man,
a field goal game to me.
7.5.
That one, yeah.
Even if it's, I can see it being more than a field goal, but I don't know that I see it being more than a touchdown. Like so many ways that game could play out.
Yeah,
and that number's tasty to me. Like as much as I want to see what this Rams Niners spread does, like if this game can get up to 4 somehow, like if someone comes in and moves the needle and it goes from 3.5 to 4, yeah, you're not really getting anything with that half a point, but just for the push sake, I'm going to hammer the Niners too. I think you're right there, Derek, but at 7.5, man, that looks awful tasty here for this weekend to be able to put, some money down on the Bengals to cover. I don't expect them to win, but to cover is like, whew, that looks good.
I would agree with that one. So, guys, we, everybody out there has been listening the last few weeks, know that we've been playing a DFS type of game over there on FanDuel amongst the 3 of us and anybody else that's wanting to hop in and play with us. Again, just shoot us a DM over there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We'll shoot you the invite and you can hop in and play against the boys on this one. And it's been a lot of fun. So we've had a lot of things kind of go back and forth there. Alex won one of the matchups 2 weeks ago and was shut out this week. And sorry, Alex, but I ended up taking down Saturday's DFS contest between us, and Kevin ended up taking down Sunday. And Kevin, you had the pick of picks when you set your DFS lineup there. It was one that I had looked at quite a bit and talked myself out of, and you played him. So congratulations on the Gabe Davis DFS play over there on FanDuel, who, him and Josh Allen, I think, almost outscored Alex by just those 2 players by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a guy that I was looking at, and when I first put my lineup together, I didn't fit him in properly. Like I was looking at Darrell Williams, and then it was actually his being inactive that caused this shuffle. So I changed a couple things around through the lineup, and I ended up getting McKinnon in there, and by moving things around, I felt like I was too heavy. I think I had Pringle in there is what I originally had, and I felt like I was just too heavy on Kansas City at that point, just by trying to mix it up. And so I figured, you know what? I know, or I feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game. I feel like all the offense is going to have to come via the passing game. So why not? Because if Gabe Davis falls into the end zone once, he pays for his price tag, and I at least get my value out of there. And holy smokes, 4 touchdowns later and have the stack with Josh Allen. I was very pleased with how my Sunday slate went. That definitely helped take the cake for me.
I will say this, a guy, and admittedly, I haven't been doing DFS for very long. I just started really when you guys introduced this little tournament of fun that we're in right now. But a guy that has been just super impressive in the playoffs and has just been solid and is coming at a pretty good price is CJ Uzoma from Cincinnati. The tight end spot. He's in at like 5,500. Like you can really save some money. And in the last 2 weeks, I can't look up whatever reason. I don't know how to use this app. But I mean, he was 7 for 71 last week. And the week prior, I think he found the end zone and was a major contributor. He might have been the highest scorer I had on that team for whatever round that was. So that's a guy that obviously I think his price tag might go up, but I still think it's cheaper than a Kelsey or a Kittle. You don't have to break the bank on one of those two dudes. And you can still get a tight end that's seeing the ball and making plays.
Yeah, I like it. Well, guys, any other thoughts on the DFS deal? Any nuggets that you want to drop for the folks? I feel like we've already kind of hit that a little bit, but if you have any other final thoughts before we move on here.
Beyond that, do not listen to anything I have to say when it comes to DFS, but Uzoma's a play.
That's one.
Yep. Sorry, I was catching myself as I started to open my mouth. I think the only thing left is, if you guys want to get involved in the week, are we doing the weekend spin that our group is doing, Derek? So
yeah, so it's both games that'll be taking place here.
So hit us up and have some fun with us, right? Let us know. We'll, shoot us a DM, shoot us an email, whatever that looks like, and we'll get the link out to you. You guys can join us and have a little championship Sunday fun, right? Between the AFC and NFC championship games, and just kind of see everybody shaking out. Little harmless gentleman's bet to end the season, and
some bragging rights on the line.
Yeah, exactly. You end up whooping our ass, and we'll call you out here on air and give you the props you deserve.
Absolutely, I love it. So, guys, let's go ahead and talk about some coaching carousel. And at this point, I think we just kind of punt a little bit as far as hitting up some of these teams, things like that. Like, it's been a slower moving process than we typically see a lot of years with the coaching carousel. But
I honestly think, though, Derek, before we get into the big news that happened today, which is Tuesday, before we get into that, I honestly, I saw a thing today where back in 24 years ago, the Broncos won the Super Bowl on this day. Like, they used to play the Super Bowl at the end of January. Then it used to be kind of in the first, 5 or 6 days of February. Now we're talking about the
Sunday in February.
Yeah, now we're talking about the second week in February because they added that, that extra week. We've added the extra round of playoffs essentially. So now we're talking about. So I think moving forward, the NFL calendar kind of gets pushed back a little bit. We're not going to see dudes taking jobs until after the Super Bowl is done. Now, I do think that as what we refer to as Black Monday, which is the Monday after the regular season, I do think we're going to see, let's call it Green Monday, I guess, which is the day after the Super Bowl, because there's going to be 9 head coaches that are determined. All sorts of GM spots will be probably figured out by that point. But there's going to be a lot of dudes making a lot of money the day after the Super Bowl, I feel like.
The Bears got their GM today. They took
polls
from the Chiefs, from the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's one domino, right? And that's been part of some of the struggle with some of these teams, between the Vikings and the Bears, and what the Jaguars are doing and that type of thing, to figure out the GM piece. So it will be we're starting, one domino fell, and we're going to see what his thoughts are about a coaching candidate. But they got Dan Quinn, the Bears do, coming back in for a second interview. The Broncos have shortened their list from 10 down to 3 to 5, depending on what report and where you're getting your information from. But yes, I would agree, Alex. We are going to see Green Monday, and it might come as early as the beginning of next week, as we hit that dead week,
the open week,
Pro Bowl week, where teams kind of put this stuff in to make a splash and fill the news cycle, and the teams that are still in the playoffs have their coaching staff available for interviews and that type of thing. So money will be flowing for these head coaches, and
Yeah.
we'll see how it shakes out. I think some of these guys are going to get paid very handsomely to try and rectify bad situations.
I would agree. And a new team joining the carousel. Sean Payton coming out today saying that he's going to step away from football for the moment, step away from coaching duties this coming season for the Saints. So the Saints are going to be looking for a head coach here as well, which was not a domino we necessarily saw falling here, but very interesting as far as that goes. I saw a tweet out there earlier today, and I wish I remembered who said it so I could give him the shout out here. But they said that Sean Payton was kind of like that dynasty manager that comes in, trades away all the draft picks to get veterans to try and win now, and then pieces out after the year.
Well, me, kind of, except he was there for 16 seasons,
right?
And and the crazy thing is, he's under contract with the Saints through 2024. So anybody thinking that he can just leave the Saints and go coach somewhere else, I know a lot of Cowboys fans were instantly like wetting their pants, thinking that they can replace Mike McCarthy with Sean Payton. It doesn't work like that, guys. Like, you have to pay attention to the numbers. There is a buyout that would be needed. Not that Jerry wouldn't pay the buyout. Like, we understand Jerry has the money to do it, but it's more than just, well, hey, how do you feel about taking this interview now? Like Peyton said in his interview, he doesn't feel like coaching is where his heart is this season. So we will see him on a 3-letter network for this upcoming season in the booth, possibly Fox if Aikman takes the deal with Amazon, which is rumored to be a very likely possibility. So we'll see Sean Payton and Joe Buck teamed up together, which I think would be okay. I mean, I think you'd get some good feed out of Sean Payton for at least a season, and kind of go down that road. But kudos to Sean Payton. Hell of a coach. The players love him. Stand-up guy, all things considered. I know we had the Bounty Gate thing that rumbled through there, and it cost him a season. But overall, he's been a very good ambassador of the game. So, Sean Payton, I wish you well. Congratulations in whatever endeavors you start next.
He is going to coach again. Like, there is no doubt in my mind he will coach again. It will not be next year, obviously, and it may not even be the year after that, because I think a lot of these guys, once you figure out the TV grind, which isn't all that much of a grind, it's actually pretty nice. For those upper level network dudes. But once you kind of figure that out, it's a pretty cushy job that pays pretty handsomely, and it's not that bad. It's certainly not going into the building at 4 a.m. trying to figure out how you're going to stop so-and-so, or holy crap, we got Tom Brady this week. What are we going to do about that? Like, that will never happen as long as he's in a broadcast booth.
Yeah. While we're on the coaching carousel, real quick, any credence to what Terrell Owens had to say this week?
I didn't see it. Go ahead and
so he said that if the Cowboys fired McCarthy and brought in Tony Romo to be their head coach, they would instantly be Super Bowl contenders.
No, absolutely not.
I don't think Tony will do it, but I just thought it was interesting that, here we are, playoffs, coming off the best weekend ever, and part of the news cycle, right, wrong, or indifferent, is what Terrell Owens had to say about Tony Romo. Like,
yeah,
it's still his quarterback, man.
Right.
It's still his quarterback.
He seems to have a bit of a bias there when it comes to Tony Romo. For whatever reason, his soft spot for Tony Romo is well documented. So I'm not sure why.
The only quarterback he ever got along with. So at least he's still giving him props.
That's fair. But never in a million years, Tony Romo wouldn't even be close to being ready to be a head coach.
No. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and move on to our final topic of the night here. And Alex posed a very interesting conversation piece last week that we couldn't fit all into last week. So we brought it
Didn't
to this
realize
week.
my name was Alex now.
Yeah, Kevin brought it up.
I'm sorry, Kevin brought it up. My apologies, sir.
Okay.
Mine's the one we're going to talk about later.
Okay, that's
He's
right.
got a better beard. I'll give it to him.
All right, there we go.
Thank you. I've been working on it.
So Kevin asked the question of how many teams have a franchise quarterback. And I know Alex started going through this last week, which I think is where I got mistaken on this one. But Alex, you had a lot of teams already have their franchise quarterback here. But who wants to start the conversation, start the discussion tonight about how many teams have their franchise QB?
I think it's only fair since Kevin posed the question. I'll go first, and then we can let Kevin, explain his reasoning, because his number is very different from my number. My number, I think, is a lot higher than Kevin's. In fact, I know it is because I saw what Kevin's number was. But I'm saying, and I said this last week, 11 teams right now, as it stands, 11 teams have a franchise quarterback. I will go through and list them off for you. Arizona, Dallas. I'll put a pin in the next one. The Rams, the Seahawks, the Ravens, the Bills, the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Chargers. And now I will add here that there are two more names that need to be added to this list, but I can see the reason why I could take them off, because for the same reason why I haven't put Big Ben on this list is because I don't think he's coming back next year. I don't think he's going to be playing for Pittsburgh. I think we saw his swan song, so that's out. But the two names are Rodgers and Brady. And while I don't know if Brady's going to come back this year, we're in the dance now of will he, won't he? And I don't know if Rodgers A comes back or B comes back and plays for the Packers. I think there's question to both. Does he have more? Does he come back and play for the Packers? If the Packers don't want to move off of him, does he just say, you know what, it's been a good ride? So those are two that I don't think are, that could be taken off the list. But as it stands right now, guys that are on the roster, I have 11 franchise quarterbacks. And now I will say this, because Kevin, I think, has a much narrower definition of what a franchise QB is than what I do. And my definition of a franchise QB is a guy that you have invested in, either via trading major draft picks for, or you've signed a major contract to, a guy that will withstand any coaching or GM changes no matter what. Right?
So Derek Carr should be on your list according to that.
No.
Fits the criteria.
I don't think he does, actually. And I can get into that for a second too. But those are guys that they have made the face of their franchise, and that to me is what makes you a franchise quarterback, a guy that is virtually untradeable. Right? I don't include a team like Jalen Hurts or a team like Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, because we've seen their willingness to move off of a guy that I thought was their franchise quarterback, right? They had a coaching change. They moved away from Wentz. I don't think that the Colts are there either. I'm not sure that the Colts are 1,000% sold on Carson Wentz, even though they gave up all that. So to me, it is a guy that is coaching change proof, and or has gotten an extended contract. Your Derek Carr point, if we want to let Kevin go, I can get back to the Derek Carr point.
I see your rationale for it. And if that's the way you're looking at it, then those points fit. Right. I think I was looking at it slightly differently, in the fact of, like, when I'm thinking franchise quarterback, I'm thinking a guy who can go out and, when all odds are against them, go and get the win when you absolutely need it the most. Like, absolutely go get it. So I I had 7, and really it should be 8, because when I was going through my list, I missed one. So it really should be 8 is what it should be. So a lot of these, Alex, we do agree on. Josh Allen, yes, absolutely. I'm going to tell you that Joe Burrow has elevated himself into that franchise quarterback class right now. Yes, it's only his second year, but we have seen the leap from year 1 to year 2 and what he's been able to do. And I am willing to put my stake on that here at the moment, that the Bengals will continue to wreak havoc over the AFC North and be competitive every year with the Baltimore Ravens because of what Joe Burrow can do. That's it for the AFC North. So just keep that in mind there. There are 0 franchise quarterbacks in the AFC South. 0. Trevor Lawrence, maybe he's up and coming. Who the heck knows? Ryan Tannehill, we turnover prone. Like, he's not the reason that team's successful. We've seen that. AFC West, you get 2 of them. You get Mahomes with the Chiefs, and you get Justin Herbert. And he's borderline. I'm not sold that he's a franchise quarterback just yet, because he had his chance to win the games that he absolutely has to win, and their team loses in overtime. Like, he's yet to win a playoff game. Like, so I think really Herbert is out for me if I had a gun put to my head about it, because he hasn't won a playoff game. He hasn't been able to get the job done. Dak, not a franchise quarterback. Like, very good quarterback, but when you need Dak Prescott the most, he couldn't get it done. And this is what you're left with. Rodgers, yes, whether he's playing for the Packers or anybody else. Rodgers, franchise quarterback. Tom Brady, yes, franchise quarterback. And then Matt Stafford and Russell Wilson. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. So yeah, I took Herbert out. So there's 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so it was 7 because I backed off on Herbert. So that's kind of my thought behind it is, will Herbert fit into this criteria? Yes, I absolutely think he will get there. Like, he will find a way to elevate himself in there. He's in a tough division to do it because you're facing Mahomes twice a season, no matter what. So it is going to be a tougher road for him. But these 7/8 guys are guys that, for the most part, you can count on week in and week out, come hell or high water, that they're going to do whatever they can to put their team in the best position to win. And if all the chips are against them, they're not afraid to load their team up on their shoulders and go get you a win. So, no Kyler, hasn't done it yet. No Dak, hasn't shown me he can do it yet. No Lamar Jackson, hasn't shown me he can do it. I mean, so those are the key differences. Mm-hmm. But those are the reason why they're my differences.
All right, so I want to hear this Derek Carr thought that you've got.
You don't want to give your list?
Well, I'll get into my list. I certainly can do that. I just was going to give you the chance to talk about that one.
Yeah, so I excluded rookies coming off of their first year. Look, Justin Fields might be a franchise quarterback, but we don't know yet, right? We don't know yet. Same with Trevor Lawrence. Might be a franchise quarterback. We don't know. We just don't know. Joe Burrow has obviously, he technically only has a season and a half, but like, the dude is a real deal, right? So like, he is not going anywhere. Like, Cincinnati will do everything they can to keep him as a Bengal for the rest of time. The Derek Carr thing to me, and another criteria that was factored into my decision making was a guy that you've built a team around. That, like, when you're looking at a team and its composition, right? If you've got a quarterback situation that you can say, yep, we've got that locked down, we can build around that piece. The Raiders with Derek Carr, I genuinely think that if they were presented an opportunity to move from Derek Carr that made sense to them, they would take it in a heartbeat. I think that there are, and I don't think that asking price is the same as it would be for any of the guys that I listed, right? I think that asking price is probably a little bit less. I also think that if the Raiders, Al Davis and his son Mark Davis, rational moves not really in their repertoire. So for me, if they get the new GM in and they get a splashy coach that comes in, like maybe they go out and try and get splashy quarterback and Derek Carr becomes expendable, right? So to me, like he is not as expendable as expendable as any of the guys not on this list for me. So that's why I say that Derek Carr is not a franchise quarterback, because I think that the Raiders would at the right opportunity, if a team came in and said, hey, we'll give you 2 seconds and a fifth and maybe something, I don't know what it would be, but I don't think it's a first round pick that the Raiders would be like, yep, okay. Like, I don't think that they're asking for a first round value out of Derek Carr. Whereas all those guys that I listed right here, in order for a team to come and get them, you're talking first rounds, and you're talking multiple first rounds to try and get them off that roster.
Yeah, and some of that has to do with the construct of their contracts and that kind of stuff. So I can see that. But no, just the way that you had laid that out originally, like Derek Carr fit into the criteria that you were talking about there. And I can see where you're going with your list there, for sure. For me, I got very picky on this one, and I probably went a little bit more with how Kevin was talking about there as well. That when I'm talking a franchise guy, I'm talking about a guy that we're gonna hang the success of our franchise on, because we're going to go out there and we're willing to invest 25+% of our salary cap and our team on this one guy, or to the point that they are really elite and they are not a replaceable type of guy in there as well, from more of a standpoint that you can't just put another guy in there that's going to get this similar type of statistics, similar type of performance there to it. So
it's their war. He's putting in baseball analytics to this.
He is. How fitting on the day of the Hall of Fame announcement that you've gone with war.
Y'all are welcome. I tried to fit a baseball reference in there for you. So for me, really, like I was going through and when you guys were going through that, I was going through my list and hearing some of the, I've probably got 6 guys that I'm really comfortable saying that are franchise QBs out there, franchise elite quarterbacks that, no problem. If I'm the GM, if I'm the, willing to stake our entire season, we have one drive, this guy, put the ball in this guy's hands and he'll get the job done for us type of thing. Right. A lot of the names that are there. It can be Brady, Rodgers, Joe Burrow, his way in there as well. I've been very impressed with what he's been doing. Mahomes and Russ is the guy that could potentially up there for me as well.
Hey, Derek, we're going to stop it. Derek, can you hear us?
I hear you.
Okay. We need to let your internet recycle real quick. Because your whole thing right there sounded like you got one of those. Do you remember those little like speaker phones where you could change your voice to like an alien voice and you talk through it? That's exactly what you sound like right now. So maybe I don't know how we let this recycle here, but we were missing everything you were saying there.
Right. Well, is it still doing?
Oh,
it sure is. It sure is. This is the strangest thing.
It's very digitized.
Yeah. You sound like T-Pain right now. Like that's. He's still talking. He still sounds like T-Pain. We gotta figure this out. Hold on.
All right. So for the sake of our listeners,
yeah, Derek.
Well, Derek's gonna try and. I mean, he's froze up.
Maybe try to reset.
Sounds T-Painy. Like So for the sake of it, I'm at least going to read Derek's list, and then once he catches up, he can go ahead and explain it, because I get the gist of what he was going for. So, Derek's 6 guys that you could put on the field, you got to have it, can lead your team above all else. Derek's 6 guys are Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, and Russ. I'm okay. I like that 6. I think we all, and really all three of us agree with that 6, right? We vary slightly outside of it, but I agree with this 6. So, the guys that he has that are on the cusp that could be getting there for him are Kyler and Justin Herbert. Kind of like I alluded to. He's missing some key names also, right? Like he doesn't have Dak. He doesn't have Lamar. So, some things to definitely ask him about and let him explain himself on why he thinks so. But they're hard to come by. There's only 32 of these jobs, and without a doubt, there's always a couple that are being cycled throughout, and maybe we do have a new batch coming up, right? I think that it's unsexy, but I think Mac Jones is going to fall into this list faster than Justin Fields or
any of the
Trevor
other first
Lawrence.
round picks from this year. Yeah. I
And
think you're right on that.
And a guy that we're not talking about that if he was playing, I think would be on this franchise list, Desean Watson.
Yep.
Like he does have that ability. He has been that guy. And yes, he's dealing with his situation at the moment. But if he's playing and if he's active, I do think he fits into this franchise quarterback mold, or at least did as of the 2020 season. We'll have to see how things look in 2022 and if he's with Houston or if he's with someone else and what his conditioning looks like and all that stuff. But Watson is another guy that none of us mentioned because he didn't play this season. But I do think that we could all agree would fall into this franchise quarterback list if things keep rolling in the trajectory that they were before his legal situation.
Looks like we have Derek back now.
Am I?
Yes.
Am I back?
Way better, man.
There we go. So not gonna lie.
We went through your list, so
Okay.
we need to hear you defend your 6.
Okay, so the 6 is really down to like the elite guys, the guys that I'm willing to put the ball in the hand, game-winning drive, season on the line type of thing. Like those are the guys right there, right? So Brady Rodgers, Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, and potentially Russ, right? Like Russ is kind of on the fence for me a little bit. I'm viewing Russ a little bit as far as that, like what does he look like coming back off of injury? So 5 for sure, willing to take the gamble on Russ being in there. I've got 2 other guys really kind of on the cusp that I could be argued or persuaded into being put into that list to bring me up to like 8. One of those is Kyler, the other is Justin Herbert on that as well, right? I think both of those guys are up and coming guys that have a lot of promise and could do things. I don't know that they're necessarily at that elite level type of thing, at the moment, and so I'm not going to be willing to necessarily put them on the list. But there's a lot of guys in there that I don't know that I'm willing to put on that list, right? Like I know both of you guys had Stafford as a QB that you're designating him as a franchise, and the reason that I didn't is when I looked back off of just a statistical comparison between what Jared Goff used to do for the Rams compared to Matt Stafford this year. The numbers really aren't that different. And from what we saw going into it as well, this past year, and this was one of the things that we said beforehand, that Matt Stafford is an upgrade at the quarterback position. Is he going to be a night and day difference maker type of thing? Is he going to be, really one of those truly elite type of quarterbacks at the position this year? No, I don't think so. And I think that played out there as well. Like I said,
Jared Goff have won that game against Tampa Bay.
Very well, he might have. I don't know that I'm willing to stake anything on that one, but again, I think that's the slight upgrade that you get between Goff and Matt Stafford there.
And that's fair. Stafford was one of those guys. Is it was the attrition test for me.
Right.
He survived what 2 or 3 different GMs and 7 different head coaches in his time in Detroit, and
right.
all of them unwaveringly said Matthew Stafford is our quarterback.
Right.
Like, it wasn't even a shadow of a doubt, like, hey, let's bring a guy in and kick the tires around and see if we can do this, and if we need to rebuild or whatever. Like,
hey, let's spend a second-round draft pick on a guy.
It was unwaveringly just said, no, Matt Stafford is our guy. And to have that many different coaches and people in power, decision-making power places, not even question him.
Right.
Not even question him. Like, to me, he doesn't have the playoff prowess that some of these other guys do.
Mm-hmm.
But I did grandfather him in because if you've gone through that many executives and head coaches and all of them are like, yeah, he's my guy, you're a franchise quarterback. I can buy that for me.
Right. And I've got him, like, he's the guy right after Herbert for me. So it's not like it's that crazy on that one.
And I'm sure this question is going to get thrown back at me as well, but I'm going to pose it to you since you're talking. What would a player like Lamar Jackson or Dak Prescott have to do to get on this list for you?
So Dak was probably closer this year, coming into this year, than what than he's at now for me, right? And a lot of that has to do with the fact that what we saw from the Cowboys right before Dak's injury, right? Like, Dak was out there, and we saw the pure dismantling of what happened with the Cowboys when he went down and when he got injured, right? But they didn't have somebody else that they could bring in, and they could do that job, and they could win games down the stretch there with him out. So he's not far off the list either, but it was one of those that coming down through that thing, right? Like, I would have expected the guy, that, like I said, I'm wanting to put my season on the line to put it in his hands and watch him go down there and do it. And we saw what happened, right? Like, decision making takes off on a scramble there, and we don't been playing the game forever, and we don't understand. We got to get the ball to the ref to set that thing instead of tries to get it to the center and snap that. Like, I get that heat of the moment type of stuff, but like, Dak is a very, very good quarterback, but I don't know that I'm going to put him up in the elite level just yet, right? Same thing with Lamar Jackson, right? Like, we came in and we saw several of Lamar's replacements this year come in and have very good games when he was out and keep them in a playoff race and do those types of things. Like Brett, it was Brett and Hundley that came in on that thing, had a better statistical game with Lamar missing that than Lamar had on any of those games this year, and did some things that Lamar hasn't done in his career as well, right? I believe in that game he had 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and that's a mark that we haven't seen Lamar get to yet. So, it's one of those two that when you're looking at Lamar, right? Like, I want more of a pocket passer, type of guy back there necessarily than a guy that's going to get out there and scramble and pick up the, you really run the offense that way. So, and a lot of my list kind of reflects that as well. I've got more the pocket passer type of quarterbacks necessarily than the dual threat or the scrambling type of quarterback there.
Okay. So Kevin brought up a great point, while you were fixing the rabbit ears there. Which of the quarterbacks taken in the first round of this most recent draft? There was 5 taken in the first round, right?
Right.
Typically, when you draft a quarterback in the first round, you are expecting and hoping that guy is going to become one of the quarterbacks, as we've described them, a franchise quarterback, right?
Right.
So who of the 5 of Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones, and Kevin kind of alluded to who he thinks this might be, but we'll get your thoughts and I'll chime in on this too. Who of those 5 is the next one to join this franchise QB, as you guys have described? Who is the next one to join this list from those 5?
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. So, I mean, I could go a couple of different directions on this one. Yeah, and really for me, I think that you probably are. I think really you've got Mac Jones that's in a good situation more so than anything necessarily than he doesn't fit the guy that's going to go out there and win a game. And I'll point to the fact of 3 passing attempts in a win against a very good team out there. Like, he's not the reason that they're winning games. And I don't know that that changes here in the next year or two, right? As far as guys that I think can probably make the jump to do that the team can lean on, can do that. There's going to obviously need to be some pieces put in place around them in order for them to be successful. But I think that you've got, I think Justin Fields has a tremendous ability to be able to get up there and do that kind of thing. They've got a decent line. They've got a run game there, so they can take some pressure off of that there. So I could see him potentially getting up into that type of list there.
Don't go through all of them because I've got a follow-up question on the flip side of this. So we don't need to get all of them. But if you think Fields,
I think Fields probably has the best chance of getting there quicker.
Okay, Kevin.
Mac Jones.
Yeah, that is
the way he reads the game. No, he's not asked to do a whole lot, but I do think that quarterbacks inherently get to reap the rewards of team success, maybe even before they get there themselves.
Right.
And with Bill Belichick at the helm, the fact that he's already seen the playoffs and fought for a division title, I do think that helps him build. And this development strategy that New England has for quarterbacks just seems to work. They will load up the defense. They will baby him along a little bit. They will ask him, 4 or 5 games out of the year to really go do something kind of special. And part of that we saw, he had an amazing game against the Cowboys, guys. He was 22 of 23 or something.
16 or 7, 18, some ridiculous number in a row.
Crazy numbers. And so I think he's in the best position based off the team to get to this mark where we believe that, okay, we trust the team around him, but when he needs to go get it done himself, he can go get it done and understands the game a little bit better than some of his peers in the same draft class.
Could be.
So I like what you guys are both saying, right? That I can understand the Justin Fields side of it, and the best situation, is Mac Jones. I'm going to take off my used to cover North Dakota State glasses, and then I'm going to put them right back on because the kid's going to take over a team that is good enough to get to the NFC Championship this year. So I'm going to say Trey Lance is the next one that we put in this list because he's already got a good team around him, right? The team is there. Most of those pieces will likely return. They might lose a couple key pieces. But to me, that's the guy that I'm saying is going to be the next one to get in. And that is a completely, absolutely biased opinion. And not, and not anything, but based on what you guys are saying, it's hey, Justin Fields, if they can get some pieces around him, Mac Jones, he's in a good system, might need a little bit more help. Trey Lance has a team that he's going to step into that will have already been one of the final 4 teams left. So to me, that's easy. I think Trey Lance is the guy that is next on this franchise quarterback list.
I mean, I could see that one as well, right? And to that point on the Mac Jones side of things, right? We saw when Tom Brady came into the league, right? He's considered the greatest quarterback of all time at this point. Certainly, there's for the first couple of seasons, and when he got his first couple of Super Bowl rings under the belt there, right? He wasn't. This was one of those that we probably wouldn't have put him on the list back when he was in his 2nd, 3rd, 4th year type of thing, because of the fact of how they went out there and they won their Super Bowls. And I see that being something similar to, if Mac Jones gets up there and wins a championship over the next couple of years, it'll be something similar to that, more so than what we've seen Brady over the last, decade plus of his career, going out there and really putting teams on his back and willing teams to victory type of thing. Like that's part of the reason that I didn't have Mac Jones up there. But I could see it certainly happening as well. I think he's got a great situation. Trey Lance has a great situation there as well.
Okay, so I promised you guys we'd talk about the flip side. We named 3 of the 5. So assuming that we are all kind of in agreement about 3 of the 5 that could potentially be in this franchise quarterback talk, which of the other 2 absolutely have no shot at being in franchise quarterback talk?
Honestly, I think Trevor Lawrence runs the biggest risk of that right now. He's probably in the worst situation of all 5 of those quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Because it does have to be completely on his shoulders. Like he has a receiving core that's below average. I mean, I can't even say average at best. Like they're just flat out below average. They don't play defense. He's going to see his second head coach in 2 years already, and in a division where the Titans play enough defense, right? Their front 7 gets after the quarterback. The Colts defense isn't going anywhere. They're young and see the way that they need to play football. They're in Indianapolis, and then if Desean Watson comes back to Houston, it doesn't matter what Trevor Lawrence does. He doesn't have enough ammunition in that team to be able to compete. So he is going to be the guy that really struggles unless the Jaguars find a way to either splash big in free agency like they did a couple years ago when they brought in all these defensive pieces and they made a push towards the AFC Championship game and did that with Blake Bortles, or really, really hit high note guys in the draft. And really it's probably a combination of, because unless they hit on all cylinders for the next 2 years, there's not enough dogs to hunt down in Jacksonville to allow Trevor Lawrence to get up into the franchise quarterback talk.
I will say, it was kind of, unfair. I mean, sure, injuries are part of it, but we didn't get to see Trevor Lawrence with a Travis Etienne this year, right? Like that, and that's not saying that Etienne's a huge difference maker, but it's another playmaker for him to have. So that's another first round draft pick that you're missing out on right there, right? Like
but he's not. I mean, you're looking at something DeAndre Swift-esque, right? Like it's a guy out of the backfield. He's going to catch the ball. Maybe he returns a punt for you or something if you get, because he's, you feel like he's a little dynamic there, but it doesn't move the needle. And DJ Chark and
LaVisca
and
Marvin Jones Jr.
None of those guys move the needle. Dan Arnold, Dan Arnold doesn't move the needle. Like your best player on offense right now is James Robinson, and they can't make up their mind whether they actually like the guy down there or not. Like that's part of the reason they drafted Travis Etienne instead of going and getting an Elijah Mitchell, or instead of going and getting, Nico Collins at the time. Right? Something like that, a big body guy who can develop into your X. They're struggling. They got a lot of rebuilding to do on both sides of the ball, and they're going to ask Trevor Lawrence to try and do a lot of things outside of himself. And until he gets at least one extremely reliable pass catcher, and I get it that it doesn't necessarily translate to instant Super Bowl success, but you got to have at least one guy that you can count on. And if you're down by 6 and there's a minute and a half left, you have to have a guy that you can trust that will go get the ball. They don't have anybody like that in Jacksonville.
No. Zach Wilson actually is probably in a good situation there as well, right? Like they've got a lot of room on that thing. They've found 2 good wide receivers for him to get the ball to, right? Corey Davis showed up very well this past season, last 2 seasons actually. Elijah Moore has showed some big time splashes when he was healthy this year as well. So same thing with Michael Carter back in the backfield, right? Like they've got some very dynamic young pieces for him to grow alongside of there. They could use up a little bit more shoring up of that offensive line, but the offensive line isn't necessarily horrible as well. And they've got a coaching staff in place that at least in the past has shown a desire to grow and develop guys there. And that's something that's missing in Jacksonville. That's something that's missing in Chicago right now. So right now, you really look at it, the guys with the most stable situations, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Zach Wilson. Right. The other two, where you're talking Justin Fields, you're talking Trevor Lawrence, both of those guys, they're going to have to do things that these other guys necessarily aren't going to, just because of the situation that they're in. And I don't know that that's going to bode well for them to being able to do enough to get onto that list shortly.
Good discussion.
Okay. So guys, any other thoughts on this one?
No. Can I tease ahead to what we might be talking about next week if
tease
we follow through with it? Okay, so if you guys want to join us next week for our discussion, our meeting of the minds, as it was, in the last 20 years, twice have we seen a receiver repeat with the most receiving yards after having the most receiving yards. That was very poorly worded, but only twice. Andre Johnson did it in 2008, and in 2009, he led the league in yards both of those years. Calvin Johnson did it in 11 and 12, led the league in yards both of those years. Since then, we haven't seen it happen. So the question that we will try to answer next week, or that we will discuss next week, is it time to pump the brakes on Cooper Kupp? Is he going to be worth what we think he's going to be worth when we get to draft season next year, based on what history tells us? That's what we'll talk about next week.
I like it. I like it a lot. And JAC, I saw you chiming in there. Appreciate you commenting there. And I think you made some very good points there as well. But guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts for the viewers and listeners out there?
No, stay tuned. Let us know. We got the DraftKings, or it's not the DraftKings, the FanDuel league here for this weekend. So hit us up if you guys want to be a part of that and partake in this weekend's festivities. But other than that, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the football. We only got a couple games left, guys. Like, we have 3 real games left. I'm not counting the Pro Bowl and that disaster weekend, but 3 real games left. So enjoy them. Have some friends over, enjoy an adult beverage, maybe some finger food, chicken wings, nachos. Ooh, there's another debate. Best Super Bowl foods. We'll hit up that during the Pro Bowl week. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good week.
Let's hope that this Sunday of football is at least half as fun as last Sunday, and it'll still be an absolute blast.
Love it. Alrighty, guys. Again, you can find us on our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. Please do us a huge favor. Head over to the YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, ring the bell, get the notifications for when we go live. And as always, thanks for tuning in. For Kevin and Alex, I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.